centerpiece was a 12-pound prime rib I'd been dry brining since Wednesday. Not because anyone asked me to, not because my husband suggested it, because his mother had mentioned exactly once at a barbecue 2 summers ago that she'd had prime rib at a colleague's Christmas dinner and thought it was the most elegant thing. I had written it down in the notes app on my phone. I had researched the cut, the temperature, the salt to herb ratio. I had driven 40 minutes to a specialty butcher in Pasadena because the one closer to us didn't carry bone-in. That's the kind of woman I was then. The kind who writes things down. I'd taken Friday off work, which, as a project manager at an architecture firm, meant I spent Thursday night handing off 3 active deliverables and setting up an out-of-office that I knew I'd be checking anyway. But I took it off because the dinner was Saturday and I needed Friday to prep, and I had told myself this year would be different. This year the table would be set the night before. This year I wouldn't be finishing the roasted carrots while everyone else was already on their second glass of wine. My husband's family had a tradition. Every Christmas Eve, they gathered at whoever had the biggest dining room. We'd moved into our house in Glendale 18 months prior. 3 bedrooms, an actual formal dining room, a kitchen with a 6-burner range I'd picked specifically because I knew this moment was coming. So this year, it was us. 14 people. His parents, his sister and her husband, their 3 kids, his uncle and aunt from Scottsdale, his cousin who was visiting from Portland, and 2 family friends who had been coming to these dinners since before my husband was born. I had a spreadsheet. Column A, dish. Column B, timing. Column C, oven temperature. Column D, who was bringing what? Nobody was bringing anything. I had asked twice in the family group chat if anyone wanted to contribute a side or a dessert. His mother had replied with a red heart emoji. His sister had said she'd try to grab something from Trader Joe's on the way. She didn't. I'm not telling you this to make them sound like bad people. I'm telling you this because it matters. It matters for what came later. I started the day at 6:15. Prime rib out of the refrigerator to come to room temperature, mise en place for the potato gratin. I'd already made the cranberry relish Thursday night, whole berry, orange zest, just a hint of jalapeno because I'd read somewhere that the heat cuts the sweetness and I'd wanted to try it. I tasted it that morning. It was good, really good. The kind of thing I would have texted my best friend about under normal circumstances. My best friend lived in Austin now. We texted constantly, but she wasn't here, and that particular morning I didn't have a free hand to text anyone. My husband came downstairs around 9. He poured himself coffee, looked around the kitchen at the cutting boards and the mixing bowls and the cooling rack with the pre-roasted garlic heads and said, "Smells great in here." Then he went to the couch and turned on football. I want to be precise about what I felt in that moment because I've thought about it a lot since. It wasn't anger exactly. It was something more like a quiet, familiar disappointment. The same feeling I got when I'd finish a long project at work and realize no one had noticed how much of it had been mine. A feeling I had become so accustomed to that I'd stopped naming it. I kept chopping. His parents arrived at 4, an hour before anyone else, because his mother liked to help. What she actually liked was to be in the kitchen while someone else cooked, offering commentary. She picked up the cranberry relish, examined it, put it back down. She said, "I always use the canned kind. The jellied one. Everyone loves it." I said, "I know, I just wanted to try something a little different this year." She said, in a way that was not agreement. She asked where I kept the good china. I showed her. She rearranged the stack I'd already set out. I didn't say anything. By 5:30, the house was full. The kids were running through the hallway. The football game had migrated from the living room TV to the kitchen iPad, which was now sitting on my counter where I needed counter space. I moved it to the coffee table. My husband moved it back. I didn't say anything about that either. The prime rib came out at 6:47. It was genuinely perfect. I had a meat thermometer and I knew what I was looking for. The crust was deep brown, herbed, crackling. The inside was rosy and even. I'd done a red wine juice that I'd been reducing for an hour. I carried it to the table and his uncle actually said, "Oh wow." His mother looked at it for a moment and then said, "Let's hope it's not too rare for the kids." I set it on the trivet. I went back to the kitchen for the potatoes. That's when I heard it. Not what was said. I was around the corner running water to deglaze the pan, but I heard the shift in the room, the way a conversation drops in volume when something significant is being said. I turned off the faucet. My husband's voice, low, measured, the way he got when he'd rehearsed something. "I've been talking to a lawyer. I'm going to be filing for divorce in January. I wanted the family to know before the holidays got further along." I stood at the stove with the pan still in my hand. The water I just turned off was dripping from the faucet, one drop, then another. I thought about the spreadsheet. Column A, column B, column C, column D. I thought about the 40-minute drive to the butcher, the dry brine I'd started Wednesday, the jalapeno in the cranberry relish that nobody had tried yet, the red heart emoji his mother had sent in the group chat when I'd asked if anyone wanted to bring something. I set the pan down on the burner very carefully, the way you set something down when you're trying not to make a sound, or maybe when you're trying not to throw it. I walked into the dining room. 14 people, the prime rib at the center of the table, still steaming, his mother with her hands folded in her lap, looking at the tablecloth, his sister with her mouth slightly open, his uncle already refilling his wine glass, which I noted absurdly was the move of a man who had known this was coming. My husband looked at me. He had the expression of someone who had expected tears or shouting, someone who had positioned himself to manage a scene. I didn't give him one. I looked at his mother first. I said, "You know where everything is. The potatoes are in the oven on the middle rack. Another 15 minutes. The juice is in the small saucepan, low heat. Don't let it boil." Then I looked at my husband and I said, "I'll be at my friend Carla's. You can have your lawyer contact mine." I went upstairs. I took 12 minutes. I packed a bag. Not everything, just what I needed. My work laptop, my passport. The folder in the top drawer of my nightstand that had our mortgage documents, my car title, my social security card, my grandmother's ring that I'd inherited and kept meaning to get resized. I had not been planning this moment, but somewhere in the back of my mind, I had apparently understood that someday I might need to leave a room quickly with proof of my own existence. I came back downstairs. Nobody had moved. The prime rib was sitting there. Nobody had touched it. I picked up my coat from the hook by the door. I picked up my keys. I did not slam the door. Carla lived 20 minutes away in Burbank. She bought a condo 2 years ago, 1-bedroom, second floor, with a little balcony where she kept a lemon tree in a pot. When I called her from the car, pulled over 3 blocks from the house because my hands were shaking too much to drive, she picked up on the second ring. "Are you okay?" "No," I said. "Can I come over?" "I'll put on tea," she said. That was it. No questions. No what happened. Just, "I'll put on tea." I sat on her couch for a long time without saying much. She didn't push. At some point, she ordered Thai food. At some point, I told her what had happened, and she said, at the dinner table, in a voice that wasn't really a question, more like she needed to say the words out loud to believe them. I said yes. She said in front of everyone. I said yes. She was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "Okay. Tomorrow morning, we're calling Jamie." Jamie was her college roommate, family law attorney based in Pasadena, known in Carla's circle of friends as the person you called when you needed someone who was aggressively good at this. I had met Jamie exactly once at Carla's birthday dinner 2 years prior. I had thought she seemed sharp and a little intimidating. I had not expected to ever need her. I slept on Carla's couch. It was a good couch, actually, better than I expected. In the morning, Carla made eggs and we called Jamie on speakerphone. Jamie asked me several questions in quick succession, the kind of questions that told me she'd had this conversation many times before. What was my income versus his? Was I on the mortgage? What were the accounts and were they joint? Did I have documentation of my contributions to the household, not just financial, but my time, my labor, the things I had taken on when I reduced my hours at the firm 2 years ago because his schedule had gotten demanding and someone had to be home before 7? I had an answer for all of it because I am the kind of woman who writes things down. Jamie said, "Don't go back to the house without letting me know first. Don't make any large financial moves. And do not delete any messages, voicemails, or emails from him or his family. I don't care how upsetting they are. Keep everything." I said I understood. That afternoon, my phone started. His mother, first. A voicemail that began, "Sweetheart, I think there's been a misunderstanding." I saved it. His sister, a text that said, "He didn't mean for it to come out that way. He was going to tell you privately. Can we talk?" I saved it. His uncle, which surprised me most, a long, rambling voicemail about family and getting through things and the holidays being a hard time for everyone. I saved that one too, with a note in my phone that said, "Uncle, unprompted, Deck 24. My husband called 6 times in the first 24 hours. He did not leave a voicemail until the fourth call. When he did, his voice had that measured quality again, the rehearsed one. He said he hadn't meant for it to happen in that setting. He said he thought the family's presence would make it less charged. He said he hoped I understood he'd been sitting with this for a long time and that he deserved the chance to explain everything properly. I listened to that voicemail 3 times. The first time I was furious. The second time I was sad. The third time I heard something underneath the rehearsed parts. A flicker of genuine surprise. He had expected me to fall apart, or to fight, or to beg. He had not expected me to leave. He had not expected me to be this quiet. And I thought, he does not actually know me, which was, in its way, more clarifying than anything else that had happened. I went back to the house on the 26th, with Jamie's knowledge and Carla beside me. My husband wasn't there. I'd asked him to leave for the afternoon through Jamie in writing. He complied, which told me something about how his own attorney had already advised him. The table had been cleared. Someone had washed the dishes. I noticed in the refrigerator a large container with the leftover prime rib stored neatly inside. A little handwritten note on a piece of paper towel, folded and tucked under the lid. It was wonderful. E was my husband's aunt from Scottsdale. She was 71, quiet, had brought a bottle of Rioja to the dinner, and barely said 10 words all evening. I don't know why she did that. I stood in the kitchen holding that note for probably longer than made sense. Then I put it in my bag, evidence of the small kindnesses that don't excuse anything but still deserve to be kept. I took what I needed, my grandmother's other jewelry that was still in the upstairs closet, my files, my kitchen equipment, the stuff that was mine before the marriage, the Japanese chef's knife my father had given me for my 25th birthday, the copper saute pan I'd bought with my first bonus at the firm. I left the Instant Pot and the stand mixer we bought together. I left most of the furniture. I had not come to take more than was mine. Jamie, it turned out, was very good at her job. California is a community property state. We'd been married 6 years. I had documented, between my planner and my notes app and 3 years of therapy receipts, a fairly clear record of how I had scaled back my career growth during the marriage, passed on 2 promotions, taken the reduced hours arrangement. built the social and domestic infrastructure that allowed his career to expand. Jamie called it economic contribution documentation and said she saw it all the time and knew exactly what to do with it. My husband had a good income. He also had, it became clear over the following weeks, a plan that had been in motion for some time. A plan that had required the family to know before the holidays were further along, because there was someone else. And she was apparently going to be at the New Year's party his sister was hosting, and logistically it was tidier this way. I am telling you this because you will wonder. Everyone wonders. Yes, there was someone else. No, I am not going to spend this story on her. She is not the point. The point is what his mother said to me in a phone call in early January after the legal process had formally begun. She said she was sorry about how it happened. She said she hoped I knew they all loved me. She said she had always thought of me as a daughter. And I said, I know. Because I did know. And also I knew that love sometimes is not enough to make people honest. Sometimes people love you and still let things happen to you because honesty would have required them to be uncomfortable, and they decided their comfort was worth more than your time. I said, thank you for calling, and I meant it, and also I meant I'm going to be fine, and I need you to hear that. The divorce was finalized in September. It was not dramatic in the end. We settled. It was fair, not generous. Jamie had prepared me for the realistic range and we landed in it. I got a portion of the equity in the house, which I put toward a down payment on a condo in Silver Lake. 1860 square feet. Second floor, a kitchen with a gas range and enough counter space to do everything I needed. I went back to full hours at the firm in March. My director didn't blink. He said, "We've been waiting for you to have more bandwidth." I had a performance review in June that went very well. I didn't tell him why my bandwidth had changed. It wasn't his business. Carla came over the first weekend after I moved in. We drank wine on the floor because I didn't have furniture yet. Just my boxes, my grandmother's jewelry in a dish on the windowsill, my copper pan hanging on the wall because that was the first thing I'd hung. She said, "How do you feel?" I said, "Tired, but like a normal tired, not the other kind." She knew what I meant. The holidays came around again. I drove to Phoenix to spend Christmas with my parents. My mother made tamales because she's from Sonora and tamales are non-negotiable, and my father opened a bottle of something good and we sat at the kitchen table and talked for a long time about things that had nothing to do with any of this. On Christmas Eve, I thought about the prime rib, the Wednesday brine, the 40 minutes to the butcher. I thought about writing things down in a notes app, storing proof of your own existence, and what it means when you realize you've been doing that your whole life, not because you're anxious, but because some part of you always knew you might need it. I did not feel sad about this. Not exactly. I felt something more like, I see you. I see what you've been doing all these years, taking care of everything, writing it all down. I see you. And I thought, me too. I thought, that's enough actually. That's a place to start. The thing I keep coming back to is the note. A piece of paper towel folded under the lid of a container, written by a woman I barely knew. 4 words and an initial. And somehow that small thing, that quiet, unsolicited kindness from someone who owed me nothing, is what I think about most when I try to make sense of everything that happened that December. Not the dinner table, not the voicemails, not the spreadsheet I'd made in column A through D, the note. I think we spend a lot of time waiting for the people closest to us to see us clearly. We cook the meal, we drive 40 minutes to the butcher, we write everything down in our notes app, and we wait. We tell ourselves that eventually, if we just do enough, the right people will notice. And sometimes they don't. Sometimes the people who love you most are also the people most comfortable with your invisibility, because your invisibility makes their lives easier. That's not cruelty exactly, But it's not nothing either, and the bill for it comes due eventually for everyone in the room, not just the one who gets blindsided. What I've learned on the other side of all of it is that integrity isn't just about being honest with other people. It's about being honest with yourself first. I knew somewhere in the back of my mind that something was wrong. I had been storing proof of my own existence for years without fully understanding why. That's your own inner compass trying to get your attention. The most important thing I did before the lawyer, before the settlement, before any of it, was listen to that quiet voice instead of explaining it away. And then there's the question of how you leave. Not just a marriage, anything. A job that stopped fitting. A friendship that's become one-sided. A version of yourself you've outgrown. There's a way to walk out of a room that costs you your dignity, and there's a way to walk out that keeps it. I chose to put the pen down carefully. I chose to give his mother the oven instructions. Not because they deserved my courtesy. I genuinely didn't think about it that way in the moment. I did it because I knew who I was, and I wasn't going to let that night take it from me. That's what I mean when I say intelligence isn't just IQ or career success. It's knowing which battles to fight and which rooms to simply leave. It's understanding that the most powerful response to someone who expects a scene is the calm, quiet act of not giving them one. And the resilience part, that one took longer. Resilience isn't bouncing back fast. It's not being fine 2 days later. It's Carla's couch and bad Thai food and crying in a parked car 3 blocks from the house and getting up in the morning anyway. It's calling Jamie on speakerphone and answering her questions in order and not falling apart. Not because you're strong in some cinematic way, but because you've decided that your life is still worth the work of rebuilding it. I'm in Silver Lake now. My copper pen is on the wall. My grandmother's ring is getting resized. I wrote that down too.